All right, so in today's lesson, what we're looking to do is look at the relationship between masks and brushes. What you can do with your mask is pretty impressive by itself, but what you can do when you include the brushes on the other side is even more intense. What we can do with a lot of these different tools is create interest in a single image, and that's what we need to look at. Not only are we combining multiple images together to create a design, we're creating single images that are impressive by themselves. So that's what we need to look at today. So if you will, in today's Canvas, there will be a file which will give you a zip file and it'll give you a brush. So if you go down here and look at brush and masks, you'll see a brush and a picture that we're going to work with. For the brush, if you just double click on that, that'll install it into Photoshop. You'll be able to verify that it worked by clicking on Photoshop and looking down here at the bottom of your brushes. It'll say, what's that, Free Lightning Photoshop brush, and that'll kind of verify that you've got what we've got. Next, you'll need to open up your image, which is the image of this girl. Now, in previous lessons, we've talked about the brushes or the masks and how to really enhance the masks and make sure the masks are cutting around well. So with that mask, we want to make sure that we're creating clean masks as best we can, especially around the wild hair of this image. So let's go back and let's look at that real quick. All right, so if we're looking at this image right here, we can see that the left side of her hair is pretty wild, right? So first we need to make our initial touch, our selection. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this and go to Select Subject. That'll give me my initial touch. Now, is that the only way to select? Absolutely not. I could come over here to my selection tools, use my object selection, hover over her and click, or if I wanted to, I could use my quick selection tool to physically select this. All of these tools have their pluses and minuses as to what they do, but for this scenario, the select subject will probably do fine. Now, is this selection perfect? No. Hit your layer mask, you'll see that it's not perfect. I would say this object selection tool probably did the best job out of the lot, but even it's not perfect. I'll hit Command Z to back up. Ooh. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attempt to clean up this selection. I'll go up to Select and Mask, and I'll even look up here at where it says Refine Hair. Now notice again, I've got this overlay view on. My opacity is pretty high, so you can see the difference. I'll go to this option that says Refine Hair, and you'll think that that does a pretty good job of fixing the hair. But when you click on it, you'll see that it really just kind of eats into a lot of it. It doesn't do a great job. You can kind of experiment with it and see how it works. Now, the Quick Selection tool allows you to quickly select areas, hold Option, deselect areas that might be wrong. The Refine Edge tool allows you to kind of go through some of these areas that might need a little bit more of a touch and kind of go through and see if you can clean up these areas a little bit. You can see the purple starting to come through in the hair in some spots. It's just the cleaner way to play around with it. So that gives me a little bit better selection. Remember your global refinements, increase your smoothness, maybe play around with your feather a little bit. I don't know, it's kind of iffy on this sometimes. Contrast, you can push up a little bit, and you can shift the edge in just a hair so you don't end up with a weird white outline. If you're happy with it, hit OK, and then bam, layer mask. That's about as good as we're going to get for now. It's a little messy in this area. We can clean that up as we go. Clicking on our layer mask, getting our brush, our normal brush, excuse me. And I can zoom in or not. I'm not going to. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit right here, just clicking, dragging over that area. If I make a mistake, X will flip my color and I can draw that back in. Now, we've got a good cutout of her. Her background has got a checkerboard transparent pattern. So I need to fill that in. I'm going to go to my adjustment layers and go to gradient. Now, I don't care what gradient you pick. I want you to experiment here. I don't want you to click this arrow. I want you instead to click right here on the color to get the gradient editor. I want you to choose two colors. Down here at the bottom, if I choose, let's say pink, and I choose over here blue, it'll create that gradient, but it doesn't look like it. Notice nothing changes. That's because these top bars right here represent opacity. The left one's 100%, the right one is 0%. So I need to increase that opacity. You may see it do this right here, that's okay. I'll hit OK once, and then I'll look at this gradient fill option. I might want to reverse this, flip the colors. I might want it to be a radial gradient, flip that around maybe. Maybe I want it to be bigger, kind of fade it a little bit more. You can play around with these options and see what you like. It's entirely up to you. I like the reflected one personally. I'm going to go a little smaller on that. And I'm going to change my angle to kind of be at that angle. And I'm going to hit OK. Now you see it's on top of the layer, so I'll drop it down below. And that's where it'll live for the time being. Here you might see a little choppiness in your hair. That's okay if you do. I'm not looking for perfect, I'm looking for good, right? Now, I need to duplicate this gradient fill. I need to make another one. I can hit Command C, Command V to copy and paste. I can drag it to this plus sign, or I can hit Command J to duplicate this layer. And I can put this layer on top of the other one, just like that. Now what I want to do is I want the face to look very similar to the gradient. I'm going to use a blending mode. That's right here where it says normal. And I'm going to kind of scroll down my blending modes and see what looks good. You can choose whatever you'd like here. Maybe you like this Dodge color that's a little more extreme. I prefer the overlay personally, or the soft light. Maybe you like the hard light. It's up to you to kind of play around with it. What you can't pick are these really dark ones right here. Okay, I need something that's a little brighter, a little easier to see. In fact, now that I see it, I like hue. I'm going to stick on that one. Now, to create the look that I'm looking for, I need the right side of this document to be a little wider than it currently is. So I'm going to go up here to the top. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm going to go over here to the left to the crop tool. Usually I don't touch the crop tool because there are other ways to do this. But I want to point out something here. When I move the crop tool, notice these lines that show up. This is called the rule of thirds. Things are naturally more attractive with the rule of thirds. That means you separate things into thirds. The left side, the face, the right side. Or if you were at a beach scene, you'd have the sand, the water, the sky, right? Hit return when you've got it looking very similar to mine here. I need a little bit more room on the right. Now, what we're going to do is a little bit of a destructive method, but not really. I'm going to hold Command, and I'm going to click on this thumbnail of the layer mask on the girl. That'll select that mask that we made. And then I'm going to duplicate her, Command J. And that'll give me just her cut out with no layer mask. Okay? Now with that layer selected, I'm going to go up to Filter, Liquify. This is an entirely different interface. Liquify does some cool things. One of my favorite things to do when students drive me up the wall is I'll put their PowerSchool picture on the computer, and I'll start making their eyes look all kinds of wonky. I'll blow their eyes up big. This is no different than working on your GTA character, making your eye distance and mouth smile however you want it to be, right? So that's just the basic setup of what this Liquify tool does. I'll hit reset right here. But that's not all. The first tool in the set is called the Move Forward Warp tool, and that's what I'm going to use. With that Move Forward Warp tool, I'm going to kind of click and drag in this hair and the rest of her right side to kind of drag it off to the right. I'm going to get fingers. I really want as much of this pink color as I can possibly get because that's what's going to look the best in what we're going to do. When I get it a little bit off of her, then I can make my brush bigger and do bigger pulls to just kind of fill the area. Try to leave no gaps. All right, once I've got that set up, I can hit OK to lock that in, and you'll see this weird blur over here. Now, we're going to do a couple of things here that are going to be a little odd, all right? First, I need to add a layer mask to this girl, like that. Pause, excuse me, like this. clicking that layer mask. It'll be a blank white layer mask because I have nothing selected. And then I'm going to fill this entire area with black. Now I can do this with my brush, B for brush. I can make my brush big and just kind of paint black like that if I want to. See, it all goes black right here. Then I'm going to select this section right here, this layer mask of the girl below. So there are two things here. They look like the same thing. That's okay, but they're not. I want this layer selected. And with my brush, I'm going to go to my special effects brushes. And I'm going to choose the Supreme Spatter brush that is Kyle Spatter brushes right here, the second one in the lot. Now, what this is kind of a junky little bit of a look. You can see how that brush looks, right? It's kind of all over the place. So I'm going to need to clean this up. I'm going to want to clean the left side of this girl so that there's no hard line. So I'm going to shrink my brush down and I'm just going to kind of drag. Click, hold, drag. Maybe some bigger spots. Kind of drag like that. And you see it gets rid of all of those hard lines here. Now I'm going to go over here to my layer mask of the second girl, the top one, the one that I blacked out. And this one I'm going to paint white. And I'm going to use some bigger brushes. And I'm just going to kind of click over here to the right of her. And it needs to look like a nice fade from her to out here. It should be less and bigger towards the right, smaller and more the closer you get to her. You see this gives a nice Thanos snap effect, right? She's fading out. Now, are you ready for the magic? Because this is where the magic happens. I want to zoom in close to her eye. All right, you can see this is a nice high-res image. We can see her eye clearly. Get your brush, B for brush. And let's go up to the top and get your general brushes. And we're going to pick a soft, round brush. Now, if I take this brush and I line it up with this eye, I can see that it doesn't really match. I've got the top of her eyelid, right? So I'm going to try to fix that with my brush. I'm going to shrink this down. Notice if I grab the top, I can kind of make an oval instead of a circle. I can also rotate it a little in or to the side as needed. Now, maybe a little smaller. That fits the eye a lot better. Now again, remember we have a new layer here, so keep that in mind, all right? I'm going to click one time with my white color picked, and you're going to see it gives this like nice smoky look to the eye, right? And that could be good enough if that's all you're looking to do, but I'm going to hit Command Z, and I'm going to try something a little different. This time, I'm going to pick that purple that I'm using, that purple pink that I'm using. And I'm going to click on her eye. One click. No, let's call it 2 clicks. Bam. Make it darker, right? And then I'm going to grab white and I'm going to put white right on top of that. Now you get a color and that white area coming from that. You could add a second white click if you wanted a little more white. I want this to blend with the eye. Now if I go down my blending modes, you can see most of them don't really work well. However, I think if I hit screen, it really fits that eye really well. I'm going to add a new layer, and on this next layer, I'm going to play around with my lightning brushes. Now the trick to the lightning brushes as I'm going to do it is to one, pick a different piece of lightning every time you do this. Shrink your brushes down to about the 200-300 range, somewhere in there. And then you're going to need to change the angle of your lightning. Which way is your lightning going? So I'm going to connect the purple or the pink color to the pink area. So my lightning bolts are coming out of the outside of her eye if they're pink, right? And I'm going to go to my next one. I'm going to change the location. I'm going to shrink it down. I'm going to keep going, right? 1, maybe 2 clicks. 2 clicks in the same spot will give you a slightly brighter lightning bolt. All right. And I'm going to put about 5, maybe 6 around this eye in total, so you can see how that looks. All right, now once you have the purple put in, the real trick to kind of give this that two-toned wild look is to start adding white on top of it. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to get those same, or I'm going to get different lightning bolts, excuse me. I'm going to go at slightly different angles, and I'm going to attempt to come out of the dead center of this, right? And by doing that, that's going to give me a much more stylized look. Now the white can be a little brighter if you want, a click or two extra, whatever floats your boat as far as the look. I would recommend zooming out occasionally to see if it looks right on that zoom out, because it's real easy to look at something up close and then see it far away and be like, oh, that looks terrible. So if I give myself about 5 or 6 of these as well, I'll get a nice balanced look. Alright, so you can see the look that I've got here. It's pretty wild looking. It looks pretty good up close, but you might notice some problems with it. It's not unheard of to grab your brush here and get a soft round brush and just kind of give your center area one more little white smack, right? Just to kind of blend those white bolts in a little better. Now, it looks okay here, but when you zoom out, all of a sudden, it really starts to look good. This is what it's all about. This is what graphic design comes down to. It's your attention to details. If you're not being attentive to your details, your client's not going to appreciate what you do. The more attention you show to details like that, the more appreciative your client's going to be. It's hard to charge a client $100, $200, $300, $3,000, $4,000 if you're not paying attention to the details, right? That's what this assignment's about, paying attention to the details. We can blend images in from there, make images look amazing. But for right now, that is one stellar looking image. You should be doing things like this on all of your images for all of your projects at this point. This is not Viz 1, this is Visual 2. I expect more. All right, if you've got that done, Shift Command 3, turn your screenshot in. Have a good one.